Ah, nice. Welcome to Darkwoods Paranormal. I am your host, Gabriel Von Graves, and joining me, as always, is my producer and fellow investigator, Raven Knight. Raven, how you doing?
I am wonderful. I'm super excited for tonight's episode. How are you doing, Gabriel?
I'm fine, thank you. Well, there are moments when ordinary world becomes unexpectedly thin. A shadow crosses an empty doorway. Footsteps echo through a locked corridor. And a trained investigator is forced to consider evidence that should not exist. Welcome once again to Darkwoods Paranormal, where refinement meets the unexplained. I, of course, am your humble host, and we've already met our wonderful producer. Tonight, we welcome Lawrence F. Larry Lawson, a veteran criminal justice professional, former police academy director, that's huge, paranormal investigator, educator, and author of Haunted Indian River County. Larry is the founder of the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation and Indian River Hauntings and host of the Paranormal Stakeout on the X Zone Radio and TV network. His paranormal journey began in 1980 when, as a young correctional officer inside the Dade jail, he witnessed a full bodied apparition walking down a cell block, and then it disappeared. Tonight, we examine that encounter and the evidence based philosophy that has guided his investigations over centuries. Darkwoods Paranormal is produced by Unboxed Media LLC and appreciated to our friends at Dark Realm TV and 3J's Hot Sauce, the disappearing bottle. Isn't that correct?
That is great. I love that.
Settle in, keep an open mind, and watch the shadows carefully. Mr. Lawrence, welcome to Darkwoods Paranormal. You are well overqualified to be talking to us. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, I don't know about that, Gabriel, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, you are
Well,
a
we're happy that
paranormal
you're here.
investigator,
We're happy you're here.
a detective, and
Mhm.
so being able to
Two things I love, by the way. Two
come
things.
in terms with something that is factual based and something you
Mhm.
can't explain, I find that absolutely
Mhm.
fascinating. So, as you started this journey way back when you were in your youth, um, how did you come to terms that in your mind, because you got to use both sides of your brain, and at what point did you decide there's something out there I can't explain?
Well, a lot of individuals have experiences that are in the paranormal community, have experiences as a child. I did not. Had a mom that was very,
Mm.
very open minded and was very interested in other things, but pretty much with her, it was the UFO issue with her. She was reading all the Chariots of the Gods and all those books way back in the 70s.
Good books, actually.
Yeah, they are. They are. So,
Mhm.
I had a mom that had a very open mind, but I really didn't have an experience. And while I was interested in the unknown, I can't say that it was something that really pulled me towards it at that point. Grew up, I moved down from Ohio to go to college down in Miami. Like a fool, didn't really know what out of state tuition really meant, so I ran out of money after 2 years. But I ended my profession a little earlier than I planned. I wanted to finish college first, but I finished 2 years and then ended up working in the Dade County Jail in Miami, Florida. And I was just barely 20 years old. I mean 20 years old by less than 6 months, I think, at that point when I started, and just was excited to be off and running as an actual adult, so to speak. And I was working in the jail, and the Dade County Jail, now it's known as Miami-Dade County, by the way,
Hmm.
rather large place, 10 stories tall, covered
Oh,
about a
that is
city
very
block.
large, isn't
Oh,
it?
it's a large jail. And all the rookies, as was I, we were always put on what they called Team One, which is the bottom floor where all the booking took place and stuff. But
Hmm.
when they were shorthanded, we would get farmed out to the floors where they needed a certain amount of staffing. And of course, I was working midnight watch. That's where all rookies go. And I got sent up to the fourth floor one night and was sitting in the control booth. Now, if you're familiar with how jails or even prisons work, there's usually a pod of cell blocks, and there's a security office that's secured, glass all the way around it. And in front of me, as I'm sitting in front of all the buttons and the controls, is a lobby and an elevator. And there were three wings down each cell block. And at the end of each wing was a large barred door that led to the catwalk that went around the entire outside of the cells. So every half hour or so, we had to go down the cells that were in front of me, and somebody had to always go around the outer cells. Now, I'm sitting at the control booth. I had just actually gone down the center cell, the block, because that's where the folks, let me back up a little bit. The fourth floor that I was on was where they put people that were either had mental health issues or were on suicide watch. So it was kind of an interesting floor. The center block was where the suicide cells were. I'd gone down there and checked them, had gone back, took my place at the control panel. I'm sitting there and, wide awake. I was still happy to be, working, right? Well, as I'm looking down the center cell block, at the very end where the barred door was, I saw a tall, slender figure in a uniform go from right to left. Nothing see-through about it, nothing wispy about it, nothing that caught my eye or my imagination other than hollering at the two guys behind me in the control booth. LT, the lieutenant, is on the catwalk, guys. So they shot out the back of the door, and one went right, one went left, and they went all the way around. And now bear in mind, the only way you could get up to the floor was the elevator that was right in front of me, or the stairwell that was attached to the back of the cell control booth. So you'd have known anybody would have come up. Well, they both went out. One went right, one left. They came back and they said, Lawson, there's nobody out there. I'm telling you, I just saw him. Oh, this place is haunted. Stuff like that happens all the time. And they proceeded to tell me some of the other stories. They were just matter of fact. They weren't saying, oh, let me tell you a ghost story in the middle of the night. They were just matter of fact, oh, the coffee pot will come on by itself. The doors will do this, that, and the other thing. So that was my first experience, but I know what I saw. I just had somebody ask me not too long ago, as a grizzled old man now, experienced detective, looking back at my young self, would I have seen the same thing? And the answer is yeah, I know what I saw. I know what I saw. I know what I experienced. And it was somebody that wasn't there, at least not in our dimension.
Right.
So.
So, as a
Wow.
seasoned investigator, paranormal investigator, which you are, what theories do you have? Why would something hang around a prison? I mean, out of all the things you can hang
Yeah.
around, you're stuck. Why be in a place that you were forced to be?
If I knew that answer, Gabe, I would not be on the show right now. I'd be sitting on the island that I owned because I would be so rich having that answer. We don't know. We only have theories. I think that's a real important thing to bring up at the beginning of our talk is we don't know what the phenomenon is.
Right.
We don't know if it's actually the other side reaching out to us. We don't know if it's this theory of dimensions that we talk about quite often now. We don't even know for sure that it's not our own mind. I mean, when you think about it, we only know what our brain is 80% capable of. We don't know what 20% of our brain is able to do.
Right.
I like to talk about the guy that Ben Spoon's, Uri Geller, who used to bend spoons
Yep.
Oh,
on the tube.
yep.
To my knowledge, he's never been debunked, but here's a guy that with his own mind bended metal. And certainly you go back to things like MK Ultra, Operation Stargate, where not only the CIA in our country, but Russia, the Chinese, the Brits were doing it, having people with psychic ability transport themselves through remote viewing to a Russian missile silo.
Absolutely.
I kind of got away from your question here.
I
but
absolutely love conspiracies.
He's
Government
actually really
conspiracies,
into
man.
that. Yeah.
Love it.
But when you take those thoughts of the mind, we don't know, is it possible our own brain is either being used as a conduit for the other side, or are we creating some of this ourselves? Now, I have my own personal belief, but that doesn't mean anything. As a cop, I have to have tangible evidence to take to a jury of my
Yes.
peers to prove that this individual committed the crime that I've arrested him for. We still are not there yet in the paranormal world. I think maybe the UFO side of the paranormal is maybe a bit closer than everybody else. But the cryptid side, certainly the ghost side, we don't have that tangible evidence yet. So what do I think it is? My official answer is I don't know. I do believe that our spirit, our energy goes somewhere, and I think that somehow they are reaching back to us. Now, what that looks like, still working on that one myself. But you can't deny that it occurs since the beginning of time. Every socioeconomic class, religion, country, people, everybody in every group you can think of, regardless of education, has experienced this. To say that it is nothing is just as absurd of saying every bump in the night you hear is a ghost. The answer is truly in the middle. And what we are, and what my team and what my goal, my vision is to come together and find out what that answer is. One thing about my group and I, wherever the evidence goes, takes us, we go. If it somehow proves it is us, we will accept that. If it is the other side, we'll accept that. But we will go where the evidence takes us. So, long answer to not really answer your question, but that's kind of where I'm at with things.
I actually really like that answer. So
I think that was
when
a great
I
answer.
ask people that work, I have had small stints of working in kind of the same environment you're discussing, and I find that people that go to jail, I would say a good 99% of them have been there, prison, whatever it is, for doing wrong. Doing wrong is a negative thing. And I think there is a dynamic presence when it comes to facilities like that, just because that's just where they feed off, right? You know, so I when we interview people that have been in situations like yours that worked in a prison or areas that probably aren't the best people that hang out there. I do find that it is a numbers game when it comes to souls, and it's my belief, and I can't prove it, just like you can't prove paranormal, that entities that wish no good hang out in areas like that.
I would agree with that. And to get back to answer your question, I think that negative energy is a huge part of it. Now, I
Absolutely.
firmly believe that if these are truly the spirits of those that have gone before us, I believe they actually have free will and can go where they want. Now,
Sure.
that doesn't mean they don't feel trapped there themselves. That doesn't mean they don't feel safe going anywhere else. But I do believe that in prisons, mental institutions, where there's a huge amount of emotion, not to mention negative energy, I have no doubt that might keep some of them there. But on the flip side of it, there's a place that is it was basically our laboratory for years, and it's an old school in a little town called Fellsmere, Florida, and the place is filled with kids. We have had ample opportunity to collect data that tells us that there are kids there. Opened in 1916, closed in 1980. But not one tragedy has ever been recorded there. No child has died there. There's never been an accident. So why is it filled with kids? My
Right.
theory is that's the happiest place in their memory. That's where they were happiest, so that's where they go back to. And that's really along the lines of what you're saying with the prison side of it. They're there for a different reason. The kid could have died when they were 100 years old, but they
Right.
come
Went back
back.
to where
Right.
they're comfortable.
They went back there, and once again, it's a theory, and we've got
Yeah.
to work on somehow proving those theories.
I think that's
So
fantastic. Go ahead, Ray.
I have a thought. So you're asking why people would stay in a prison, but as Larry here was kind of explaining some things, I know that we've had people on the show before that their theory is that sometimes souls are not willing to go to the other side. Like they know they've passed, but they're scared of what's going to happen once they get to the other side. Now, if we're talking
The
about
elevator
people
was
in
going
a
to go
prison,
down instead of up.
That's exactly right.
right,
Yeah.
right. So maybe the people that hang around a prison, maybe they do that on purpose because that is where that's not necessarily where they're stuck, but they don't want to go down. Like they don't want to experience, the what could be their further punishment. We'll say.
Oh, it's very, very good, Raven.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
Well,
I
thank
like
you.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, I have to talk about your evidence. Your, being somebody who was in law enforcement, detective, those kinds of things. Evidence is really important. How do you distinguish or like separate though, like that side, like that career, from
Wow.
a career where you cannot prove? Like
Mhm.
how do you separate those things?
It's tough. I guess a lot of it because of what I've seen, I know there's something out there. It's just like you can know, and I'm thinking of a case in my mind actually. You know darn well that person burglarized that house. Why?
Yeah.
Because you've seen a lot of you know the person, you've seen other things that they've done, and you just know it. You just can't prove it yet, and that's kind of where we're at, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. And
Yeah.
that was
Absolutely
tough.
Yeah.
does.
It was very, very tough for me, but I know it's out there, so therefore I'm striving. Not ready to go to trial yet. Not ready yet to put the bracelets on a ghost yet to take him to trial, so to speak. But I know it's out there. So in collection of evidence, you got to begin with the fact that, and I know there's people that will disagree with me, and that's fine. But there's not yet been a piece of equipment, and we use plenty of it, but there's not yet been a piece of equipment ever built that definitively, without question, proves the existence of the other side.
Yeah.
Just
That's
doesn't
that's
exist.
Yeah.
absolutely true. That being said, I truly believe the best instrument is ourselves, our human bodies, because you can go in a place, and I'm sure being an investigator, you've been to places, you can feel there's something
Mhm.
there. But as you said, there's not something built that'll show you that,
And that's the problem. Take like mediums, for example. I've got a dear
right?
friend of mine, Chris Huff. He's in England.
Okay.
He's brilliant and is one of the people that finally convinced. I used to think mediums just didn't, it just didn't exist.
Right.
But Chris, and I gotta say, one of my sons who has got the gift, as it turns out, changed my mind based upon what they've said that we've been able to prove through tangible evidence, such as historical fact. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, so it was really tough for me to really start diving into this without the ability to come up with tangible evidence. But I have seen enough. It's just like I know that guy committed the crime. Now, I'm not
Mhm.
going to go
Hmm.
pinning stuff on this person. I just don't do that. But I'm going to start looking for ways to collect the evidence to prove it. And that's kind of where we're at now. And that's my mindset, Gabe. I think it was Gabe that answered the question,
Yes.
asked the question. That's where I'm at now. I'm trying to find different ways to get tangible evidence. Um, for example, I use a piece of equipment called an EDI Plus. It's a box that you put an SD card in, and it collects not only EMF and vibration, but also barometric pressure, humidity, um, barometric pressure and humidity, and it charts it. So I'll have that in a room, and if let's say we get something over the spirit box or the portal, and at the same time a chair moves. Well, we got this evidence maybe on tape, and people can say, well, you had a string tied to it or whatever. But with that happening on the EDI, at that same moment, I suddenly had a huge EMF spike. The temperature dropped. It's all graphed. It's all graphed on this
Mhm.
little box. I put it in the computer,
Hmm.
and I can compare it to time-wise to when those other events happen. That's where I think the best spot that we're at now is having two or three pieces of equipment that you're using have the same thing happen, and then
Yeah.
you add some legitimacy to it. Are we there yet to go to court? Maybe not, but we're getting closer. Uh,
Well, having evidence that something happened, I think, is proof, right? I mean, so, it's if there's a bunch of people standing around and go, "Oh, I witnessed that," but if you had data of something, right? You
Data.
had something back it up. It at least shows something. What that something is, I think, is what keeps us investigating.
Oh,
And it always
yes.
will, right? Until we find the answers, then we stop. But I think it helps us keeps going and keep our minds creating what it could be. And
Mhm.
I love that. And as you said, we don't have a device, but I think we're close enough that we can compile things together to to say something's happening.
And we would call it in the law enforcement business circumstantial evidence, and I
Absolutely.
Yes.
agree.
Right.
Now, I like to say the day that Abe Lincoln walks in, pulls up a chair, sits down, and says, "Yo, Larry, this is what's happening on the other side," and I got three witnesses seeing old Abe walk in. That's when we're going to be really there. But until that time, we've got to come up with the ways to, triangulate,
Right.
have three different places pointing to the same piece of evidence. And that's where we're at now. Now, I was mentioning this Chris Huff before.
Hmm.
Brilliant man. He's very humble. Doesn't like really being put out there at all. But I don't care. I'm going to talk about him anyway. So, Chris, if you're watching,
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
there was we've been with him on cases where, and I've actually gone to England and investigated with him, and we've had some really intriguing things happen there. But he'll join us on investigations here in Florida. We don't tell him where we're at. We give him no history. He just does a walkthrough with us via the internet.
Hmm.
I did not believe this at all, for starters. Okay, I mean, before I met Chris, that's just a bunch of hooey. Well, then things happen, and evidence is presented to me that I got to listen to, and that's what we do now with Chris. And he's kind of sometimes that third leg of evidence, and we've gotten some pretty fantastic cases that he has been able to see from across the pond that we've been able to connect here, and it's as close to evidence as we have right now. Now, but that's the problem. Your body being that conduit of information. I know what I saw in the jail that night. I know what I've
Right.
seen in the Marsh Landing restaurant in Fellsmere, but I got no way to prove it, right? A medium, right now, there's no way to prove it. Oh, you can show some historical evidence, and that's good for most people, but some people are so cynical that they won't even believe historical evidence.
Absolutely.
But Chris has been able to put some things together that are fantastic. So we've got to find a way to cross that bridge, guys. We've got to find a way to create the documentation devices that will allow information like this to be quantified, and so we can put our
Absolutely.
fingers on it. Much like having a fever. You got a thermometer, you got a fever.
Right.
When you
Right.
hit over 98.6. So,
I like the way that you think that you know it's out there, but you're always looking to prove it. And I think that separates the other investigators because not everybody's that structured. People are dead set. Hey, this happened. This is what it is. But without concrete evidence, you can't prove it. And I think being structured and gathering evidence and compiling it to tell a story, I think that is true investigations. I know that I've been in situations, I'm just like you guys, where I know something happened. Let's just step into cryptozoology. I tell a story when a lot of times on the show that I was cleaning my garage one morning at 3 o'clock in the morning and I heard a goat. Goat of all things, it's not that impressive. But I remember stepping outside, watching this thing that made a goat noise clear, an 8 foot fence, just cleared it. And it was running, it was skinny. It ran very unnatural, whether it be a shapeshifter or something in Wisconsin, right? And I saw it with my eyes as an investigator that I put myself, just like you guys do, in situations that, you're prepared that something you're gonna experience something that you don't understand. But even it shocked me to the point where I actually froze for a few seconds and I was stunned by watching something that my mind couldn't even understand. And I think in the paranormal world, I wonder a lot of it is we just aren't able to comprehend what the paranormal is. What do you think, Larry?
well, I agree with that point of view, but also there's the human factor that comes into that. Going back to the cop world for a second, you can
Yeah.
have two people in a convenience store. They walk in, a guy robs them with a firearm. You'll interview both people, but they'll both give you different descriptions of the person and the
Yeah.
gun they were carrying.
Absolutely.
So I do think that yes, we have trouble comprehending what you just described, but then you just throw in the regular humanity of it, that sometimes our brains don't process the information the same way.
Mhm.
So that also makes it difficult. Eyewitnesses are not the best evidence sometimes
They
in a
are
criminal
not.
case. Same thing here. I was just talking to my team tonight. In fact, I got a husband and wife team he's our videographer, and she's one of our investigative leads. And they were going over a video of a place that we were at that was definitely active. And they're listening to the EVPs, and they're both hearing something slightly different.
Yeah.
Huh. Sure.
so the human factor is not always reliable, shall we say.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why definitive devices that can give us stuff like fingerprints, the fingerprint of the paranormal world is
Right.
what we need. And we need as paranormal investigators and researchers, we need to find a way to cross that bridge with the scientific community. I am not smart enough to create these devices. I am just not. But there are people out there that are. And if we
Right.
can somehow get cross that bridge with them and have them follow us and not just get poo-pooed over it, but actually take legitimate investigators seriously and help us develop the equipment. And unfortunately, we'd have a lot of folks out there that they don't have a lot of training and structure. They mean well, and some of them are just out there for the fun of it. I call them the paranormal thrill seekers. Nothing wrong
Right.
with that. I mean, why do people
Right.
jump out of perfectly good airplanes? Because it's a thrill.
Right.
I wouldn't do it, but my point is, so there's a place for everybody. But if we're going to ever get to the next step, we need to band together, not only as a community, but also
Yeah.
somehow bind in that scientific community a little closer.
And
I
I
love
wonder,
that you said that. I love
to
that you said
that
that. That is
point,
true.
I think the paranormal shows are not doing the paranormal community justice because everything's sensationalized. And when everything is sensationalized, nothing is. When everything is haunted, nothing is. You-
That's why I hate cop shows. I can't
Yeah.
watch cop shows. If I had a nickel for every time when I would go to a crime scene and I would find fingerprints, well, can you tell me who it is? No, they've got to lift them. We've got to examine them and have them sent off. Well, I was watching CSI and they knew who did it in 5 minutes.
Right. Right.
No. Well, paranormal investigations are the same way, and I agree with you, Gabriel, to a point that they haven't helped us. And it's true. People think that, you go to a place and you've got all this evidence in an hour. You and I both know sometimes
Nope.
that takes
We
weeks. It- Stakeouts. People watch a television show or a movie, they think police stakeouts are the most exciting thing on the planet. The truth of the
Absolutely.
matter is you'll sit there for hours and days and get nothing and get 30 seconds of adrenaline fueled excitement. Not much happened. So you're right in that respect. But I will say this. The paranormal shows when they came out, they are sensationalized, there's no question. People get the wrong impression, but it did bring it to the forefront. It did make it more mainstream. When I came on the job, you didn't talk about anything paranormal to anybody other than your
absolutely.
partner or your zone partners or whatever. Otherwise, you got
Absolutely.
sent for a fit for duty psych eval.
Yes. Absolutely.
Now it's talked about regularly in law enforcement. I love bringing this up. Honolulu PD did a whole series of YouTube shows, and I'm sure you can still find it, about the paranormal experiences their officers had on duty in their station houses in the streets. And it was about them running into ghosts. This is a police department, Honolulu PD. Look it up. It's a terrific set of shows. But it also shows you that it's become more in the forefront. So the television shows did do that for us. It did make it more mainstream, and it did get people interested in investigating. Some of them fell by the wayside. Some of them have
Yeah.
become very competent in important parts of the research field in this community.
Well, I like programs like Josh Gates. He not every program he discovers anything, and sometimes he does, and he spins more of the history side of it. And we've interviewed plenty of people that actually know Mr. Gates, and I guess he's a pretty decent guy. We've interviewed a lot of people that have we watch Ghost Hunters. That's one of the shows that I kind of grew up on that got me excited. And then we watched Ghost Adventures, and a lot of those shows kept on having to one up themselves. So
Yeah,
they had
yeah.
to and I think that's the disservice, not the disservice of bringing it to more mainstream, but the disservice of making everything haunted, making things like
Yeah.
flash.
Well, that's
and,
what, and it's the same thing with cop shows. It's entertainment. If you
Absolutely.
Yeah.
didn't have a bunch of stuff happening, nobody would watch the show, and therefore sponsors wouldn't pay money to have their ads on the show. So it's about
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
entertainment, and that's one thing with I do historical ghost tours, and I try to put a realistic spin on it. to make people understand that the ghost shows are for entertainment. That doesn't mean
Yeah.
that a lot of the folks that do the shows aren't decent folks. They are. Some of them might be questionable, but there's a lot of decent folks out there.
Right.
That's all I'm going to say. So there's good and bad. But we, maybe in our community, we have the responsibility of educating the public that, look, enjoy it, it's entertainment. But if you really, really want to know what it's like to research this field, let us chat with you. Come with us.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I think
I
that's,
love that you say that.
well, people, and people want to be excited, they want to be thrilled. But once they get past that, they also want to know the truth.
Absolutely.
And that's what we have to be about.
And I agree with you.
So you said,
Go ahead, Raven.
oh, I was going to say, you said about training, right? So you're talking a little bit about like, people that are getting into the field, wanting to know more about paranormal investigating should maybe have a little bit more training about, what to do and etc. But what would you say is a good way to have them learn or be trained?
Well,
in
I
the
mean,
field? So it's not over sensationalized.
yeah, in the current way things are, they need to find some folks that they trust. Certainly reading helps. There's lots of literature out there, but also learning from some folks that are doing it. And how many folks out there that use equipment don't even know really what the theory is behind them? For example, I love the fact that people will wave K2 meters around. The only way you can get an actual proper reading with a K2 meter is holding it straight up, because that's the axis for it. You take a tri-field meter and you can hold it either way because it's multi-axis, if that makes sense. A lot of folks don't realize that. They don't understand the theories behind EVPs or why radio signals are a thing that we use. So that kind of training, they got to be with somebody that can help them understand those things and understand the right way to investigate, the ethics of what we do. I mean, you got to be careful. You could go to somebody's house and mean well, but really not know what you're doing and make promises you can't keep, or tell people something is going on that really isn't there. And you take somebody that might already be maybe not totally stable because of what's happened in their home. A untrained person giving them wrong information might make it worse for them. So those are all things ethically wise we have to think about. But to get there, you ready for my soapbox?
I'm ready.
Of course.
To get there, we've got all kinds of groups out there. A lot of folks do it different ways. And there's best practices and there's better practices and there's not so great practices, but they still work. What we need to do as a community, as a field, is get together the best minds out there, hash out people's techniques, the equipment they use, how they're using it, and come up with a set of best practices. We do this in police work. This is how now agencies can work together. Come up with a set of best practices so that if I'm investigating a case down here in Vero Beach, Florida, and you're up there in Wisconsin and you're investigating a case, but you're using essentially the same techniques, that's not to be interpreted as you have to do it my way. It's a framework, it's a standard. But if you're investigating, gathering evidence with the same set of standards that I am, then when we collect evidence, that evidence can connect our two investigations. For example, every investigation we do, I do complete weather scan. I get the dew point, I get the barometer, I get the temperature, the wind direction. I also do solar weather. Whether there's any CMEs going off from the sun, whether or not there's any solar storms going on, what's the moon phase. With the hopes that we can collect a lot of these things and maybe connect it with our evidence and find a common denominator. Once again, you have a homicide up in your neck of the woods, we have a homicide here. Even though there's changes, there's differences in rules, state laws might be a little bit different. Hey, the investigator's interview technique might be a little different, but we still all have a same standard. And essentially, we'll investigate a homicide here in Vero Beach the same way you would up in Green Bay, minus some differences as well as some different personality things, how they interview, how the investigator talks to somebody. But all the evidence is collected the same way. Therefore, if that homicide is linked, we might have evidence we could share in that homicide. And that comes from standardization, training, and foundation. My
Yeah.
Absolutely.
opinion, as soon as we can get to that point in our community, in our field, we are going to find much more success in finding the answers instead of saying, "Oh, that's my evidence. Oh, I can't tell them that.
Oh yeah.
And I do it the right way, and you do it the wrong way." No, I mean, we do stuff our way here, but there may be a better way to do it. And I'd love to talk to somebody that might have a different take on how we do EVP sessions. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
say, that's a good idea. Then why can't we codify that, put that into a set of standards, and then we all start doing it a similar way? Now, I'm not trying to say one way is the only way. These things can also be modified as time goes on. Maybe a better way comes up later, and then we change what we're doing. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally.
Absolutely, it
That
does. And I'll
100%
take
makes
that a
sense.
step
Yeah.
further. And I think a general understanding of environments would be helpful as well. When you go into an environment,
Agree.
understanding, what happens in an environment. In the winter, heat kicks on, metal expands, makes noise, makes popping noises. It does the same when it cools off. Understand creaking. Understand, examine the environment and find out, is there drafts? Is the environment drafty? Is there windows open? Is there foliage outside that are scraping the building that'll
Yeah.
make a noise,
Mhm.
stuff like that. And when it comes to we were just talking to someone about them. When it comes to investigating coming into somebody's home, talk to the
Yeah.
person, find out the person's mental state. Is the
Oh, I've got
environment
stories like that.
disorganized, right? I mean, are they seeking, do they need something to happen to validate something? So I think
Mm.
all those would be great to have a standardized system.
Yeah.
So we all kind of start at the same point. And by starting at the same point, we can examine the evidence without wondering how they got to that evidence.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. I mean, you bring that up. We've talked to people. My Spanky Michael Maxwell. He's my lead investigator. He's also a retired firefighter who's great in buildings, by the way, because firefighters understand buildings and
Oh
construction,
yeah.
Mm.
and so
Oh
they
yeah.
hear creaks and he could pull it out. But we've had times he and I would go if we do a home. We only do home under exigent circumstances for a bunch of reasons. But we'll go out. We'll interview the folks, and you'd be surprised how often. And you got to have to ask the tough questions. Is there anybody here that has addiction issues?
Yep.
Is there anybody here seeking psychiatric help?
Hmm.
Now, this doesn't mean they're not truly experiencing something, but I am not a psychiatrist. I can't tell whether or not this is a true event that they're experiencing or it's something, a psychological event for them. We had
Right.
one case in particular where we said, look, we'll be happy to investigate your house, but first you need to go talk to your psychiatrist.
Hmm.
And if they approve it, we'll come in. Well, of course, we never heard from them again
Mm.
because this person was on psychotropic drugs because of an
Mm.
illness, no fault of theirs.
Right.
But there was
Yeah.
no way I was investigating that house and possibly making them worse. Once again, getting to the ethics and how we conduct our business.
I like that. So
Yeah.
one thing I want to ask you is what are some of the evidence that you have captured in your years of investigating?
Oh boy, where to start? Probably one of my favorite ones is an early one. Well, not that early. It was in 2017. I was actually doing a tour in Little Fellsmere, Florida. I retired from the state. I was a state investigator. Then I became the director of the police academy. Retired from all that. Went back out as a cop. I was the detective in this little town for a while, till I retired again. And I was still did a lot of tours. They liked me to bring people into town, so I was doing some tours, historical tours of Fellsmere. We were in the old school that I was telling you about earlier, and my team was waiting for me to finish because we were going to do one of our investigations that night, and they were all upstairs, and I had my guests downstairs in the basement. Well, there's not many basements here in Florida, so let's just say it was more like a lower level. It's not a
Right.
basement like what you guys are used to. But anyway, we're down there, and I hear somebody come down the steps and wiggle the door jam, the door handle. My guests heard it too, and we all looked towards the door. Nobody's there. I said, looks like it's going to be interesting tonight. But let me check. I got some of my people upstairs, and I walk up to the second floor, and I found everybody huddled in the corner. I said, did anybody just come downstairs? No, but you got to hear this. and they played a recording back, and they were upstairs in the old auditorium, and there's a little boy. We think it's a little boy. We can't tell exactly who it is we're talking to, but it's a little boy that has identified himself as Billy. And one of my guys asked the question. This is on my website if anybody's interested in looking. One of my guys says, "Is this the room you like to be in?" I don't know if those exact words, but that's what he said. And you get back, and earphones makes it clearer, but you can hear it clear without earphones too. You hear a little boy say, "Yes, sir." There were no
Oh,
kids in that building that night. There were none. This wasn't. This was not a. This isn't straight EVP, so it wasn't like a spirit box or anything. So you could say, "Oh, it was a radio station." It wasn't. It was straight EVP, and it's as clear as a bell. That's one thing. We have cases where our SLS camera, which is an interesting piece of equipment that we've got some pretty undeniable stuff on. But you want to hear my favorite one?
Absolutely.
yes,
You sure? Okay.
of course.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we are, my daughter, who's a law enforcement officer also, she was in this little town called
How
Sebastian.
cool is that, man?
Oh,
I was gonna
it's
say, yeah.
makes her old man proud. I've got a
I
son in the
bet.
Coast Guard. I've got a son who's in the medical field. So all of my
Well, thank
kids
you
are
for your
serving
service
others.
and your sacrifice. I like that.
Oh,
Thank you.
it's what I was
Yeah.
supposed to do. But anyway, so she answers a call. She's on midnight watch, and she answers a call to this little. It's a little shop that's actually an old house that was built in the 20s, and she answers a burglar alarm call there. Meets the owners, the key holders, and they go in. They find something on the floor that came off the wall. How did it get here? It shouldn't have gotten there. Well, one of the owners goes into the office and starts looking at the security camera and actually turns it on live, sees my daughter talking to the other owner, and comes out and says, "Oh, there's a shadow that just went by you." And the other one says, "Oh, we have stuff like that happening all the time." "Well, you got to call my dad." So they did, and we got out there, and this is, like I said, this is an old house. It was actually a mystical store. They sold gemstones and things like that. Nice couple. And we set up and weren't getting a whole lot. Now, this is one of those nights we had my friend Chris with me. Now, not only do we not tell him where we're at, but I've got earphones on so nobody can hear him but me. Okay, I don't want anybody else hearing what he's seeing. So anyway, we're sitting there, and we're going on. Nothing's going on. I'm wearing the earphones at this point, and Chris suddenly says, "There's a little girl here now. Her name is Belinda or Lindy. She's about 5. She's here and she's playing and she's trying to get a hold of you guys." Suddenly, our other pieces of equipment, dowsing rods, spirit box, all starts giving us the same information. We get the word Belinda out of the spirit box. These things keep going on, and she keeps talking. Well, I have got the earphones on, so I'm listening to Chris, but I got it like this so that I can also hear what's all going on. But nobody could hear him, so that wasn't a worry. So he's talking, he's telling me what the little girl's saying, and she's saying she's 5, and mommy has a lot of uncles that come over, and and Uncle Oscar didn't mean to hurt me. He took me outside, and then we were by the water, but we were in the backyard. He started hurting me. Well, what I didn't tell you was that my main area of expertise, which actually led to my coming to an understanding of occult-related crime, which is a whole different issue. It was crimes against children. I investigated a lot of cases, especially back in the day when a lot of kids were
It's gotta
claiming
be
to be
tough.
hurt.
Gotta be tough.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
took its toll. It took its toll.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, she starts talking. My antennas go up right away. I may be
Right.
old, but I still remember. And I immediately went into cop mode, and I'm starting to ask her questions. And she's talking about Uncle Oscar, and she's talking about, all the little things that happened. And finally, I said, I'm thinking in my head, I got to find out exactly when this occurred. "So do you like TV?" I asked. "No," came the answer. Chris says it. Dowsing Rod said it. "Do you like radio?" "Yes." "Do you like this modern show?" "No." "Do you like this modern singer?" "No." "Do you like this song?" "No." Modern song. So I'm going back in time. Finally, I said, "Do you like Amos and Andy?" Resounding yes. "Yes, I do." So now I'm thinking 30s, 40s. All right, so we get some more stuff going. It was interesting because Chris said that the girl's mother came through, and he was going to cross her over. How they do that, I don't know. but the little girl wouldn't go to her, which was odd.
Huh.
It would have been so
Oh.
easy for Chris to say, "Oh, yep, she's gone," but no, they said she won't go to her mother. Okay, well then everything went quiet, stopped. But we got some very, very interesting stuff that was cooperated with Chris on our equipment. So, well, I tell him, I get my hold of my daughter the next day and said, when you go to work Monday, I need you to check the files to see if there was a little girl that something happened to, and I don't know when it happened, but I think it was back 30s or 40s. Well, she went back, and of course there was nothing, there was no record at all. But Ashley went to the cemetery and spoke with the superintendent, who called me, and then I went out to see him. And basically, between the two conversations, this is what came out of it. About a week before my daughter was out there, there was a family that came down. They were from New York. He did not get their names. But they just got talking. They were visiting another gravesite, and the superintendent showed me the gravesite. It was of a guy named Harold Fear. So it gives me a name that I'm still working with today. And they were visiting that gravesite, and they just started talking about kids that were buried there. And this family, the father said, yeah, we have a shirt tail, that's my word, not his, but the same thing. Had a shirt tail relative that died here. She was a little girl. She died in 1939. She died tragically, and she was 5 years old. Her name was Belinda.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And then the superintendent took me to Belinda's grave.
Okay.
So I have a grave site of the same named girl who died at the same age. Grave was about that long, that wide. You could tell it was a poor family. Had a crushed coral headstone that you couldn't even really get a good rubbing off of anymore. So it was a poor person's grave, and the whole graveyard has an interesting story, which we don't have time to go into today, unfortunately. But how did that happen? How did we get the name of that little girl? How did we get her age? No clue. She's in an awkward spot in the cemetery. There's nobody buried around her.
Right. Right.
And there she is in this grave there. How did that happen? So every time I get a little, and I'm still working it I'm still trying to work this. I think I might have an unsolved homicide here. So we're still working it as best we can. The information is almost, I may never figure it out. But how did it happen? And that's the kind of case that gets my blood flowing.
Uh-huh.
I no longer believe in coincidence, to be quite frank with you, because this occurred, and I have the gravesite to do it. I have people that didn't even know we were investigating. Oh, here's the other interesting part. Through our research, we found out that less than a mile from the house in 2017, I believe, a man at about the age of 100 died. His name was Oscar. Could be a coincidence. I don't know. But it was less than a mile from where this little house was. And he would have been right about the right age in 1939 to have been a young man and done something stupid.
What a sequence of events that is.
No kidding.
Yeah, and it happened, and I've got it on tape, so it happened. So those are the things that get my blood really, really going. We had another case. We were down in Miami last November at the Gold Coast Train Museum, very haunted spot for you folks in Florida. Strongly recommend it. Good people down there. We were in this car. It was the presidential car. It was built for Franklin Roosevelt. It was what I call the original Air Force One, because they weren't flying back then. They traveled by train. So this is a heavily armored train car, and the Gold Coast Museum has it. Roosevelt rode in it. Truman did. Eisenhower did, and then it sat idle till President Reagan used it on his cross-country re-election tour in 1984. You guys probably don't even remember that, but
I remember watching Reagan. I remember that.
but
Reagan.
but the cart's still there. And we were down there investigating it. And once again, I'll try and make this a short story. Myself, Shelley, one of our investigators, she's the one that reached out to you folks, in fact. We're in there.
Yep.
Spanky, Mike, my number two, we were in there. And Shelley was using the dowsing rods. And once again, we don't take the dowsing rods as definitive proof, but we went through the whole bit. Is there anybody here? Yes. Was there anybody here that was were you part of the train staff? No. Were you part of the presidential staff? No. Were you a president? Yes. Were you Reagan? Or were you, were you Roosevelt? No. Were you Truman? No. Were you Eisenhower? No. Is this President Reagan? We got a yes. And I'm kind of going through this a little quickly because I don't want to take up too much of your time. But can you tell us where you're sitting? And she's sitting, if I'm here, she's sitting in front of me and Spanky's over here. And the rods go immediately to her left, I'm sorry, her right, my left, to the chair that's right there. That's been in the train, it's part of the original train. In fact, we couldn't even sit in it because it's so old. It pointed to the chair, and we talked a little bit more. And Nancy, are you here? Yes. Where are you sitting? The rods, not even slow, they moved real quick to the other chair. Spanky says, go get the SLS camera. So I did. I went, got the SLS camera, brought it in, and we started going. And Shelley's up against a flat wall. Now, if you don't know much about, do you use an SLS at all?
We do.
Okay.
We do, yeah.
You know that if you got a chair or a coat rack next to it, it'll start to look at that, and you
Yeah.
can get a false positive.
Yeah.
But she's got a flat wall behind her. There's nothing but a wood panel wall behind her. Chair that was lower, but where this stick figure appeared was above the chair, flat on that wall. Okay, cool. And we asked some questions. Can you reach down and touch our friend Shelley? And sure enough, the figure reaches down and touches her. That goes to the would have been her left side of her head. And Spanky's looking, and he's looking. He says, Larry, look at this. Got it on tape. She's wearing 2 dangling earrings. Her left earring is going back and forth where the hand is touching. Her right earring is stationed. It's not moving at all. Now,
Ah.
if she's moving her head, both dangling earrings are going to move.
Yes.
This one was stationary. This one was going back and forth at the same time this figure was going back and forth. Absolute conclusive evidence we were talking to President Reagan? Hell no. We don't know who we were talking to. But it sure as heck, once again, got our juices flowing. And we,
Right. Sequence
and
of
we-
events. Yes.
So we've had a lot of interesting things like that happen. Certainly we've gotten our share of EVPs and portal hits. But until I get President Reagan to sit down next to me and say, yep, that was me that night, I still can't sit here and tell you that is definitive proof. But we're getting as close as I think we can get, excuse me.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
That's absolutely fascinating. And on that timeline, do you think that there are newer ghosts? Everything we seem to talk about are kind of always stuff that's, 20, 30 years in the past, right? Even further, do you think, have you seen anything that lets you think that you've interacted with something, even though we can't prove anything, that was more recent? And if not, why? Why is it that everything we interact with that seems to have an aged presence
Well,
and
that's
nothing
interesting.
recent? Yeah.
in talking to one of my theories that Chris, my friend, has, is that they when they leave here, they go back. They're here for a short period of time, and we have talked to some people that were recently here. A motorcycle, a guy on a motorcycle that died is one that comes to mind in one place that we were in. But then they go and they, if you want to believe, and once again this is theory, if you want to believe that we all go back and we come back and we kind of learn and then we are reborn, reincarnation, if you will, where our spirit goes down and inhabits somebody else, then during that time they're in the other side, they're learning. So that's why we don't get a lot of new stuff. Oh heck, I don't know the answer to that. We have talked to some people that were fairly recent, within a year or two. Why older ones? I don't know. Like, are they? We were in one place and once again, this is just what they were telling us, that they cross between here and heaven all the time. Okay, then why? Why would you do that? And of course, there's always that theory. Once again, they're a little afraid that light at the end of the hallway, the elevator is going to go down and sit up, and they're not going to touch
Yeah.
it. Is it because they don't even realize they're dead? One of the protocols that we have on our team, and this is just us, it doesn't make it right or wrong. We do not ask, "How did you die?"
Absolutely.
No.
We don't ask it because sometimes they don't even know.
Right.
Yeah.
Another cool story, when I was in England with Chris, we were in a Quonset hut on an RF Ellington we were at, and it had a Quonset hut for a Spitfire squadron, 609 squadron, that defended the part of London during the Blitz. Make a long story short, I can't remember if we were using an EVP or if it was a spirit box. It's escaping me right now. But no, it was a spirit box. because you could hear the ch-ch-ch-ch-ch. Is there anybody here with
Yeah.
us? And Fury, ch-ch-ch-ch. What rank were you? Chris asks. Ch-ch-ch-ch. Sergeant. I mean, there's no way now anybody could fake that because it's not a recording. We were hearing it live. Get home a couple weeks later. Chris sends me a picture of a headstone. Sergeant Alan Fury, 609 Squadron, died October 4th, 1940. And I've done a whole background on this guy. He got 3 kills during the Battle of Britain, and then was shot down when he got shot down and bailed out of his airplane, his Spitfire too low, and parachute didn't open. But once again, that was a guy from the 40s, but that was right there. I mean, how do you fake that?
Right.
And if you want to say, well, Chris just knew about that headstone, well, how did he get it to come across the spirit box, which is basically going through radio signals?
Right.
Anyway, I digress. I'm sorry. Just cool
That's
stories
amazing.
that
I love talking to people that have such a wealth of knowledge in different perspectives, from a professional police career to investigating something that we are still trying to figure out a way to prove. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
well, people have asked me, you're a cop. How can you believe this stuff? And my typical answer is, as a detective, if I come to your house for a crime, do you want me to walk in and make a snap decision based upon what I think it is because of my personal beliefs? Or do you want me to look at the evidence
Yep.
and go through the evidence and come up with a logical answer to what happened? Oh, the second one, of course. There you go. That's all I'm doing now. I'm basically investigating one of the greatest mysteries of all mankind. Unfortunately, I'm not close yet, but I'm going to keep trying. And I got the best team in the world to do that. So, I mean, my folks are just aces. So,
Where do people find you? Find out about you.
I mean, you
Find
have
out some of
books,
your
you have
research. Yeah.
you have so much
well,
that you're doing too, which is
you
amazing.
we're on Facebook, Indian River Hauntings or Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation. You can find us on Facebook, which has probably got most of the updated stuff on it. Our website certainly is IndianRiverHauntings.com. We have some evidence on there. We do need to update that a little bit, but some of the cool stuff like Billy's voice is on there. You can also, if you want to see some of our recent investigations over the last couple of years, you can go to YouTube, and our sign is @ Indian River Hauntings 2341, and you can see some of our videos. And we try very hard to maintain our protocols. We're not always perfect, of course, but I think you get a chance to see kind of what we do out there a little bit.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. We have to
Oh,
have you on again. There's
we do. We've
there's
been
You
got
on
to
guys
be
are
so
part
fun.
much.
You
2,
guys
3, and
want
4. It just flew by. Love it.
It
Raven,
really did though. Like
what do we have
I just
going
want to
on?
say I want to first of all, before we get into what we have going on, Larry, thank you
Yeah,
so much. You're
Oh, my pleasure.
fascinating.
very fascinating.
I actually was like, I just was so fascinated with what you said the entire episode that I was like, I'm just listening. I'm just in and listening. I think
You
you're
give me too
fascinating.
much credit.
No, I would love to check out some of the stuff that you're doing, and I look forward to having you on again because I really do think we
I'm
need to have you on
I'm here.
again.
You guys are fun. I'll come back anytime.
Oh, good. Oh, good. We're now friends. We're now best friends, Larry, just so you know. Um, we are headed to Gettysburg, actually, next Saturday. I know.
Where
Super
history
excited.
comes alive.
I know. So next Saturday we'll be at Pear Jam, which is in Gettysburg, with our good friend Chris Boggs, who was actually on the show before, and we'll get to meet him in person. We'll do an investigation with him and his team, Black Lantern Paranormal. So we'll be doing some stuff over in that area this coming week. So stay tuned. Not quite sure what we'll have coming out, if we're going to go live or not. We'll let you know. But yeah, that's what we have coming up. So excited, very excited
Fantastic.
for this.
Well, Larry, thank you for joining us tonight and for sharing your remarkable journey from law enforcement and criminal investigation into the disciplined study of the paranormal. Absolutely fascinating.
Thank you very much.
Your experience reminds us that seeking answers does not require abandoning reason. It requires patience, honest documentation, and courage to follow the evidence even when it leads somewhere we did not expect it to. To learn more about Larry's work, look for the Florida Bureau of Paranormal, like you said, investigation, Indian River Hauntings, and his book, Haunted Indian River County. You can also hear and watch him on Paranormal Stakeout through the X Zone Radio and TV network. Is that correct, Larry?
Yeah, it's actually known as CanCom, a broadcast
CanCom.
network, but CanCom, yes.
Love
Okay.
it. Well, thank you to my co-host, producer Raven Knight, and to Unbox Media LLC for bringing Darkwoods Paranormal to life. We also appreciate Dark Realm TV, 3J Hot Sets, and everyone who joined us tonight. Please follow, share, and subscribe. You never miss another journey into the unexplained. I, of course, am Gabriel Von Graves. Until next time, question the story, respect the evidence, and remember, some places remember, some things never leave. Good night from Darkwoods Paranormal, and thank you